Hi folks, in this video I'm going to show you how I hand lay and weather the ties for my O scale and ON30 track on the Dinky Railroad. This is just how I do it. There's a lot of ways of going about it, of course, and so I just want to take you along and kind of give you a little overview of how I do it. I've laid probably about 50 feet of track so far, both scales or both gauges, and it's fairly straightforward. Now this is some O gauge that I have already laid down, a code 125 rail, and this is ON30 code 100 rail. Now this is O scale standard gauge turnouts. I get all my piece parts, ties, or in fact, yes, the ties, the cross members, the point rails, the frog, guardrails, all come from right away. Jay is very good, very helpful, quick to ship. And if there's any problems, he's quick to help you solve them. Now the O scale cross ties I use for the standard gauge are 7 by 9 inch by 9 foot. Again, these come from right away. What I do is I have a little jig I've made up with the tie spacing. I've gone with about 12-inch between each tie, and I've just used a piece of balsam wood scrap. And I use the balsam. It's real easy in case it gets a little tight, like maybe some of these might be a little wider or something, and you need to kind of trim a little bit off. It's real easy to just kind of take a utility knife or whatever and just kind of trim it off there real quick so that they work a little bit without giving you too much trouble. So I just load the ties in here. This is about 18-inch at a time. Make sure you get the 7 inches high, 9 inches wide. Now my railroad was built in the late 1800s, so this track would probably not as well machined and put together as some of the later railroads. So they would have probably had a lot of uneven tie spacing. I kind of stay away from trying to do too much and make it look too, I don't know, random or too miscellaneous, too kind of like prototype. I put them in, and then I just allow my sloppiness to create the illusion that the track is more random. I hope you understand what I mean. Now, take a straight edge. Metal rule works good for this. And just kind of sight along here and make sure everything is lined up fairly close. and take some blue painter's tape. Lightly lay it down over the top center, and then lightly press down so that you don't move anything. And then I usually go a second time a little hard, and then the third time real hard to get it to fit. And just pull them up. Easy. Then you got to help them a little bit. And then that's your next track, next set of ties to lay down. And put the glue down. I just use some tight bond wood glue. You can use white glue, basically anything will work, like that type of stuff. And what I did was, because the tape and stuff, you kind of lose the center line of the rail, the track. I've gone ahead and put a radius or a curve inside the center line. About let's see, these are about 2¼ 9 feet. So what I did was I put 1/1/8 inside, and that gives me my inside line for my tie. So I just start with on this end, kind of matching up where I'm at, and then when you're doing a curve, you got to kind of lay them in and do each one individually. Keep up with your center line or your tie line there. Push them down. Get them where you want. Again, you don't have to, with this railroad, you don't have to have it exact because things weren't perfect then. They're not perfect now either, I guess. Once that is down, then I go ahead and I weight it down, put a good weight on there overnight. And let it dry. Okay, so now the next step, after I have the track glued down and dried overnight, give it some time, I go in and I sand them, level them off nice. Gotta be kind of careful in this step because if you hit it too rough, it'll break them loose. You can go back in and re-glue them, but one of the ways I check for level is I have a 6-inch square that I put on a. You can go back and you can see how it rocks. It tells you that there's a high one in there. One of these two right here. There, so now nice and flat. You just move it along, and you see there's another one, probably right here. I use 180 grit sandpaper. Okay, so now once I have it sanded and leveled, this was a real pain here doing the transition, trying to get this you get as level as you can, but then the tie is it's only a couple thousandths, and it'll be noticeable when you run the train. So my next step then is to take a fine tooth saw blade, or this is a little more coarse than a fine tooth, and I just take and I put I just run it from the back to the front over the ties. Put a little wood grain into it. It'll start looking like. Then when that is done, the ties from the 1890s, 1900s wouldn't have been as well machine cut as nicely as they are more current day. So what I do is I put a little bit of a round in them, a little bit of a texture onto the edge, just to kind of make them look a little more worn and a little more used. You don't have to put much in. You do as much as you like. I'd like to kind of run through some of it. And once in a while, I'll take a chip off the end. Now I'll start out, I do first one hand. I go all right-handed. And then I come back and I go over the other side. Sometimes I just take a little off. Sometimes I take more off. Try to do it in different places, be more random. When that's done, then I take a dental tool. You can get these from your dentist. They have a lot extra. These are really nice. They're probably a lot better than something you're going to buy. They'll give them to you. My dentist gave me a whole handful of them. He knows what I like to do with them. He's always interested in my model railroading and what I'm building. Hard to have a conversation with a dentist with your mouth when he's got his hands in your mouth. But he's a talker, and I just score the tie a little bit because they always had splits in them. The wood never dried evenly and stuff, so there'd be some kind of split. And I just kind of go through it and I just kind of do some random. I won't make you watch all that. Then I come through. My last step is I come in with my sanding block and I go between the ties, just to kind of give them a little bit more rounded over, kind of cut that sharp edge off. They didn't have a sharp edge. Again, you can do as much or as little of this as you want, depending on your railroad. Then once clean it up, vacuum up all the dust, I come in with a solution of India ink and alcohol, 70% of propyl alcohol. Now, and then I just use an old stiff brush that I have. Now I don't have any formula for mixing this. What I do is I dump some alcohol in here and then I pour in some ink until I get the kind of desired that I want. As long as it's dark enough, test it out on a couple pieces. These are some I did earlier. You can see they're a little dark. This is a new batch. Kind of make sure you get it all. They're a little dark. What I'm going to do is I have some, once I get the rails on, I'll do more weathering. I do a final weather on them. I go along with some stain. Again, this is whatever you like. It starts out a little dry. It seems to dry and lighten up over time too. Some of the stuff I've done last year is already starting to lighten up. So, and really, the ties should be, I think, a little more lighter than dark black. You can start to see some of that texture, that grain coming out. I put in with the saw blade and with the dental tool. The different ties have a little bit of a different color to each one too. So that kind of adds to the final look. Not sure how far I went here. Okay, so there's where I kind of sanded a little bit on the edge. That's the other thing. You can kind of come through with a sanding block again and lighten them up, take off some spots. What I'll do after I'm done with when I put the rails on, I have a couple different stains I use. Some wood stain, antique oak, and some briar smoke. And that can, you don't do every stain. You kind of go in and you kind of highlight, dry brush, pick out what you want, kind of randomly again. Kind of adds a little more interest. The other thing I do after we get the rails down, because then there's, the locomotives will drip grease, and so I have a ammo MIG weathering. This is a dark streaking grime, so that's good. You put that down the middle. It works real nice for that. This one is earth color, so that'll help blend in. You can use that on the rails and stuff when it just kind of adds a little more. These are real nice. Adds a little more realism to it. Realism. And then there's a black wash that's real dark. You just kind of go through and highlight what you don't want or what you want to kind of hidden. It's kind of when you put the dark wash on, it kind of brings it out and kind of hides it back. But I'll do that when we put the rails on. After I get the rails on, I do have a couple books that I want to recommend that I've used. Very good books. One is Track Work Handbook for Model Railroads by Paul Mallory. This is an excellent book. Technical, a little more technical. Covers everything from the basics of design, roadbed, track, switches, switch machines, track work. Has some MRA and MRA recommended practices and some standards in here, so you can check that out if you want. Switch stands. It's a lot of detail. It's very nice. I recommend it. With train show season coming up, maybe you can find it in one of the train or one of the book vendors. Probably get it. I think I got mine. I got mine off Amazon, used, acceptable. I forget how much I paid for it. Another one that's very nice is this one here called Detailing Track. This is by Mike Cogill. Very nice. This is very nice for coloring and for weathering. Very nice. Gives you a lot of There's using right away, different how to detail up the track. When you're doing O scale, the detail makes a big difference. It's a little different when you're O scale or with your hand laying. O scale, you can use it, really get into the details a lot nicer. It shows you a lot of examples, how to lay the track, how to hand lay, tie plates. Very good. Very good book. I recommend them both. They would both be good additions to your library. In the next video, I'll be showing you how I'm going to spike down the rail. It's going to be a unique 4-rail system. Be 2 on the outside for standard gauge and then 2 in the inside for narrow gauge. Normally it's a 3-gauge or 3-rail system, and this is going to be a 4-rail, which was prototypical for the Dinky, and it's going to be something a little different for me. Hope you stay tuned. Until then, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again.